diagnostic tools so advanced, they can pinpoint the problem. So you know your car's fixed absolutely right. And for a limited time, buy one shocker strut, get the second for 50% off. For a safer suspension, nobody beats Midas.
Weather beacon green, little change in temperature foreseen.
On Los Angeles streets tonight, violence, looting, fear, despair.
Los Angeles is in flames.
It's like something you see in Beirut.
The city of angels gets a taste of hell.
These people are angry. They have every right to be.
We, the jury,
It started with this verdict.
not guilty of the crime of assault, not guilty of the crime of officer unnecessarily assaulting or beating any person.
The case of Rodney King ignites a city.
This is attempted murder.
Tonight on Street Stories,
We're supposed to all be together no matter what. If this is togetherness, we got a long way to go.
That verdict was simply one more thing that simply added up to the minds of most folks that there's no justice at all.
These people saying, well, we'll go out, we'll hurt the white people, we'll go out and burn up all these businesses. They didn't know that all the guys that worked here were black. What it's like to be a black person in America, it's like being in hell.
at daybreak, devastation, and the nation is shocked again.
The murder and destruction in the streets of Los Angeles must be stopped.
Good evening and welcome to a special Street Stories. Tonight, Los Angeles faces the aftershocks of an earthquake that no seismologist could have predicted. That earthquake was the Rodney King verdict. As night falls, the city is locked in a curfew. The National Guard is moving into the streets and whole blocks are looted or burning. The mostly black South Central section was hardest hit as rage boiled over and police and firefighters tried to stem the destruction. At least 16 people have died, nearly 450 were injured, and 300 arrested. One estimate has placed the damage so far at least $100 million. Standing by in Los Angeles with the latest on what is happening there is Richard Roth. Richard?
Ed, behind me, over my shoulder, right what you're seeing right now, beyond those white apartment buildings, that's South Central Los Angeles. And what you see in the air, the gray, the black in the air, isn't Los Angeles' infamous smog. It's smoke. Smoke from dozens, from scores of fires that have been ignited, that have burned, that some of which have been extinguished over the past several hours since the violence began. The sound that you hear is a sound that fills the air frequently, and the smoke and those sounds stretch in a broad swath across the city, all the way over to the west, where more fires are burning. It will be nighttime here soon, and a curfew is scheduled to take effect. A short time ago, the mayor addressed the city promising, "We will make the streets of Los Angeles safe and secure." But so far, despite a large show of police power that's right now growing much larger with the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops, there's still violence and chaos and considerable fear in the city. As many as 17 people have been killed in the violence and several hundred injured. Property damage estimates are already above $100 million. The center of the combat zone is a section of the city 5 miles square, but arson and looting today spread beyond South Central Los Angeles. And there are incidents of violence and vandalism reported across the city, from the business center downtown to the fringe of Beverly Hills.
You have to do that. You know, people working hard to make a business.
You know, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But let the other people do it. So, come on, everybody!
Where it has been worse, daylight didn't stop mobs of looters from ransacking stores, and neither did police, patrolling the sidelines and mostly outnumbered.
Stopping traffic.
really nothing we can do as far as everybody looting the places. There's too many people for us to actually step in and do anything.
Go home, people! Go home! This is our town!
Still, authorities said they had arrested more than 300 people by mid-afternoon. Much of the police work involved keeping a thin blue line around firefighters, who in some neighborhoods were coming under attack from snipers as they tried to knock down dozens of blazes deliberately set.
Us having to wear bulletproof vests to fight a fire just isn't right.
If we don't get no justice, it's going to happen on and on. If it don't happen today, it was going to happen someday.
You have a right to be angry. You have a right to voice your opinion, but it must not be done by ways of violence, by destroying what rightfully belongs to you. Now, where do we go tomorrow for the stores? There you go, exactly. All right.
That's what the white man wants. They want us to destroy ourselves.
All right.
As the death toll mounted, the disruption of city services spread. Bus service was halted. Too dangerous, say officials. Ammunition sales are banned, gasoline sales restricted. Schools and most public buildings are closed, along with all 90 branches of the Wells Fargo Bank. Baseball, basketball, and horse racing all canceled. Within the past 90 minutes, the first National Guard troops began moving onto Los Angeles streets, including some in a convoy of armed vehicles. In addition to the 2,000 troops already deployed, Governor Pete Wilson of California has authorized or has ordered the mobilization of 2,000 more. Now, the troops and the curfew about to take effect in an hour and a half will be the first big test of city officials' resolve to put a lid on a situation that over the past day has only gotten worse. Ed?
Thank you, Richard. Smoke from burning buildings forced air traffic controllers to reroute some planes at Los Angeles International Airport. Much of the smoke was coming from nearby South Central L.A., the area which has been hardest hit by the violence. But as John Blackstone found, residents there are coping with more than burning buildings.
There is a lot of anger, a lot of outrage that's out there. It's still an extremely volatile situation that's going on.
Joe Hicks is the executive director of the Southern Christian Leadership Council, one of the most established civil rights organizations in Los Angeles.
I think people are asking, wherever I go, what should we do?
It is not slowing down. That's right. It's escalating. That's right.
There needs to be a way for people to express that anger through productive things. We might look at the potential for a citywide strike, just to shut portions of this city down. I grew up in Watts, and when that portion of the city exploded in 1965, it took off because of some very specific things. One of them was police abuse, the kind of economic deprivation was going on in the community, and those conditions are worse than they were then.
In fact, it was the Watts riots in 1965 that Joe says led to his life's work as an activist for social change.
One of the clear things about the civil rights movement is that we always had the moral high ground in that struggle. And I think that we've got in a lot of ways to regain that moral high ground. We have been meeting for probably a month or more, and we've been discussing the possibility of what we're seeing taking place here. We call it the worst case scenario. Well, the worst case scenario has happened.
And this new violence may be burning out what little commercial enterprise, what little opportunity exists in a poverty-stricken part of the city.
They're going to look at this maybe a week from now, and they're going to figure, hell, where we're going to go shopping at? Hell, we didn't clean up everything around here. They didn't burn down just about everything.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to get no gas. They didn't tow up all the gas stations, laundromats. They're going to tow up just about everything around here.
The black community was shocked into violence. Basically, that's what you see.
With the verdict, it's anger and frustration. With this one, it's hurt.
Joe Hicks understands the hurt. Most here never wanted the violence.
You know, not only did they mess up their own neighborhood, but the guys that work here, what do they got to do? What are they going to do? They got families. They got kids. The store's owners are white owners, but they service the black community.
What would have really made a difference is a march. I mean, people marching up and down the freeway, a long line as long as they could see, and stopping traffic.
Right.
And then it would have And then people would have stood up and
positive expression of their anger and resentment against the verdict.
A march up and down the 110 freeway all the way down to the Santa Monica freeway. And all the way down to the 405. It's been something that nobody would have ever seen before. This right here is senseless right here. The only thing you're doing is destroying your own neighborhoods and destroying everything that you ever worked for.
There's nothing we can do. And it's not the fact that the business is gone, it's the fact that people are out of work. Babies won't get their milk. You know, people can't eat anymore because they don't have a job to go to make that money anymore. You know, it's just pathetic. Totally pathetic.
Only thing I keep thinking about is maybe they're saying they're going in their mind that we have fear. No, they have fear for us now. And maybe we do have fear. Maybe they do have fear for us, but we have no respect. Fear without respect is nothing.
And Joe's fear is that this time the rebuilding will be even harder.
I saw this almost the same site in '65. You know, it's remarkably similar. Nothing different about the way this looks. Exactly the same picture. It's going to take a long time to recover.
What did the jury see in the videotape beating of Rodney King that we didn't see? When we come back, one juror tells us.
The rumor has been confirmed. Summer has been given one less day on the calendar this year. There'll be one less afternoon to race down a hill. To go nowhere in particular. To relax with a pitcher of Country Time lemonade-flavored drink mix with a taste of good old-fashioned lemonade. And though summer is one day shorter, we trust you'll make the most of it.
Your breakfast, sir. This new Kellogg's Frosted Bran is quite sensible. Crispy flakes with whole wheat and bran, lightly frosted for a taste that's delicious. I love it. I love it. 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 I love it. And new Kellogg's Frosted Bran has less sugar than you'd imagine, but the taste, it's out of...
We've got to stop serving this. New Kellogg's Frosted Bran, wildly delicious, sensibly good.
One woman celebrating a new family.
Isn't she beautiful?
Another fighting to keep her marriage alive.
I filed for divorce 3 days ago. I'm pregnant.
Created a lie she could never live up to.
When the hell is my baby coming?
And became desperate enough to commit the unthinkable.
She just took her. Don't you want to see your baby girl, Captain Hudson?
Now, an innocent mother would become their only suspect.
What did you do with the baby, Karen? I love my baby.
Veronica Hamill, Nancy McKeon. Can they catch the baby snatcher? Sunday.
Stay in touch with all the latest developments from Los Angeles and the nation. Join Monica Gale and Russ Mitchell later on CBS News Up to the Minute.
A lot of doctors have been to the house on Sycamore Street. It's where they make their last house call.
You'll regret it.
In a house of dark secrets, a doctor turned detective is looking for a killer before he strikes again.
I don't think Zach committed suicide.
Dick Van Dyke, Mariette Hartley, and George Hamilton. The House on Sycamore Street, Friday.
The Miss Universe pageant, Friday, May 8th on CBS.
President Bush will be back in Washington tomorrow. He's cleared his calendar for an urgent meeting with a group of black leaders. Eric Engberg has more.
The Bush administration, confronted with the most severe racial crisis of its time in office, tried to diffuse the anger in the Los Angeles streets by promising a second look at the entire case of Rodney King under the civil rights laws.
It's important for people to understand that the verdicts yesterday on state charges are not the end of the process. The Department of Justice is responsible for enforcing the civil rights laws of the United States, and we will do so vigorously.
Barr dispatched his number 3 aide, Associate Attorney General Wayne Budd, to Los Angeles to oversee the investigation, which already involves the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Budd, a former prosecutor, is the highest-ranking black in the Justice Department. The federal government is moving into the case under Section 242 of the Civil Rights Act. It prohibits anyone acting under the color of law, such as police, from depriving any citizen of any rights protected by the Constitution. The Supreme Court has upheld the constitutionality of a federal prosecution of a person who has already been tried by the state.
And we're now talking about a separate set of laws. Having another trial is not double jeopardy. It's not the same government trying somebody on the same or an included set of charges.
Most of the time, the federal government enters a police brutality case after local officials have been less than aggressive or refused entirely to prosecute the police, as happened in the famous Mississippi burning and other cases in the South in the 1960s. While the government wins 3/4 of its police brutality prosecutions, there have been embarrassing defeats as well. After a Florida jury acquitted 4 white policemen charged with beating a black man to death in 1979, riots in Miami killed 18 people. When the U.S. stepped in to prosecute one police officer on civil rights charges, a jury acquitted him too. The decision on whether to send the case of the Los Angeles police officers to a grand jury will be made by the Attorney General after the FBI investigation is complete. Officials here stressed that the new investigation could go well beyond the 4 officers who stood trial in California. When one federal official was asked whether the investigation would extend to other police officers who were at the scene that night, she replied, "We are examining the entire incident of the beating of Rodney King."
The question that has been in the minds of so many Americans since that verdict yesterday is this: how could anyone have looked at that tape and not found the police guilty of something? One juror who insists on anonymity is on the phone with us to help us try to understand how the panel reached their unanimous decision. Thank you for being with us tonight. Let me ask you, what did all of the jurors see in that tape that the rest of America didn't?
There were things that we saw during the tape, after the testimony and so on. When we slowed the tape down, slow motion, when we ran the tape frame by frame, but it wasn't just the tape. There was reams of evidence that was given to us, testimony and other items that we looked at. So the tape was just a small part of our decision.
But I think most people took a look at that tape, and albeit they didn't see all of the information that you had available to you during the course of the trial, but they looked at the tape and saw what happened and had to feel that the police officers were guilty of at least something. Was there something in the tape that the panel saw that that escaped the rest of us?
When I first saw the tape, I thought they had to be guilty of a lot of something. But after listening to all of the testimony, looking at all of the evidence involved, and again going through the tape repeatedly, the video, there were items that were not shown to the public. It was a small part of the tape that was shown on television repeatedly. It did not show, you could not see the charge that Rodney King made into Officer Powell. You could not see Rodney King falling flat-faced on the side of his face and his head bouncing. He just fell. Nobody struck him or anything. He just fell.
There was a point about 10, 15 seconds into the tape, and I looked at it all again tonight, in which he was lying face down. It seemed to me that the police could have grabbed him and handcuffed him then.
They did try to grab him and handcuff him. There were 4 police officers that were a hold of him. They were striving to get his arms into position for handcuffing, and he lay there for a short while, and he decided he didn't want them there any longer, and with his vast strength, he just threw them off.
One more quick question. Regards race. 4 white officers and a black suspect. Did the jurors find the beating racially motivated at all?
In no way. There were 3 people in the car that Rodney King was driving. All 3 of them were black. 2 of them put their hands up and were handcuffed and booked in the proper procedure, and 1 chose not to be booked. It's as simple as that. Rodney King set the action.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for talking.
Some of the toughest cases to prosecute involve police officers acting in the line of duty. Did they do their job, or did they cross a line and go too far? Joe diGenova is a former U.S. attorney who has prosecuted police brutality cases. He joins us live tonight from Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you for being here. We all saw the tape, so why didn't they convict?
You know, jury trials are famous for unusual verdicts. We could have said the same thing about the Hinckley case. about the DeLorean case, videotapes don't necessarily mean the jurors are going to convict. In this case, one of the very serious problems with it was that the prosecution did not put the victim on the witness stand, and as a result, there was almost a dehumanization from the prosecution standpoint of the victim in this case, Mr. King. The jury never got to see him, they never got to observe him, and as a result, all they had was that tape and testimony about him. It was a perfect situation for the defense, in fact.
But I got the impression in talking to that juror that she was watching a different tape than the rest of us saw.
Well, I don't think there's any question that when jurors sit in a trial, they tend to see a lot more than you or I do who are watching only snippets, or even if we're watching the whole thing, their intensity is different than ours. And I think all of us listening to that juror may very well have thought that she saw a different tape than we did. And that's a normal reaction. There's nothing we can do about that. That's what jury trials are about.
How tough is it to convict cops?
It's very, very difficult in most instances to convict police officers, because the general public, quite understandably, is very sympathetic to what police officers have to do out on the street every day. They understand that it's a difficult job, they know that there's great danger, and they know that sometimes officers may very well overreact. They want to forgive that in most instances, and when you don't have a death, as you did not have in this case, the jurors may very well be even more forgiving.
You saw the videotape, I'm sure, many times, as did all of us. Did the verdict surprise you?
The verdict certainly did, and I'll tell you, the one thing about that tape that tells you that it meant something to professionals all over this country. That tape is being used by police academies and law enforcement organizations to show how not to make an arrest under circumstances such as that one.
So what doesn't make sense if the police are showing this all over the country and saying, don't do this, a jury looks at it and says, it's okay?
It's a very confusing verdict in that sense, but it is in one sense, it is exactly what the jury system is supposed to be about. Unfortunately, in this case, there have been ramifications to it, which wouldn't happen in the usual case because of the intensity of the interest in it and the way in which that piece of tape footage has become an icon in American law enforcement and in the American political mind.
Mr. diGenova, thank you very much for being with us. Many tonight are charging that the not guilty verdict sends a troubling message to police in America. They can beat citizens and get away with it. While it's unfair to say cops are out of control, the fact is police brutality has gotten lots of publicity recently. Peter Van Sant reports.
My nose was bleeding, my mouth was busted, and yes, I did have it. I had an abrasion under my eye and an abrasion on the pupil of my left eye.
You think I'm done?
Police brutality is not just a problem with the Los Angeles Police Department. It's nationwide.
He then threw her on the ground. He had his knee on her back, and he was still twisting her arm.
The victims are white as well as black.
They snuck up behind me and just dragged me around, then just beat me until I was unconscious.
There are rich victims as well as poor.
And I had this knee in my back. I was saying, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on?
Dr. Frank Midgley is the chief surgeon at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. He was attacked for jaywalking.
The bottom line is, what do I want out of this? And my response to that would be, I don't want it to happen again to anybody else.
Is there more police brutality today or less than there used to be? The surprising answer is nobody knows.
William Geller is a researcher with a National Law Enforcement Association. He's doing a study for the Justice Department on police brutality.
Part of the practical answer to why we're seeing instances of police brutality literally is because people are walking around with video cameras, and so we are seeing them.
You know, when you come out here, there's a lot of vicious, hostile, aggressive people out here.
Cops in cities like Trenton, New Jersey, say the public doesn't understand that they must be aggressive to control today's street thugs.
That's the type of an image you got to project. You just can't go in there like a little wimp, you know? Just watch yourself. I'm pissed.
Officer Earl Hill was suspended after he attacked Thomas Downing during routine questioning.
People, take the handcuffs off the cops!
Other police officers in Trenton have demonstrated for his reinstatement.
These streets are tough, and they don't know it. They read about it. We're in the mix of it. That's all I have to say about them.
It's rare that you hear of a cop getting convicted for police brutality. Experts say that's because jurors tend to side with the police. That many people just can't bring themselves to believe that a policeman, the symbol of law and order, can also be a criminal.
I obey with the law, and I get beaten. It makes you wonder, can you really trust this system that they call the law?
The mayor of Los Angeles today issued a sharp warning threatening arrest to anyone inciting violence on his city streets. He said he cannot and will not tolerate any violence as a means to express anger. Joining us tonight from City Hall in Los Angeles is the mayor, Tom Bradley. Thank you for being with us. Are you in control of the city streets now?
We think that we are going to be able to control this matter. There's a great deal of looting, a lot of arson, and this disturbs us. And it's the reason that I announced this morning, we applaud your efforts. When you disagree with that verdict, as I did, express that rage and that disagreement and that frustration. But don't take it out by looting, by burning, and by shooting people. We are going to arrest you if you do.
Do you have the necessary manpower to do it? Do you have enough police on the streets? Do you have enough members of the National Guard?
We have a combined force, both the police and the National Guard, that I think are going to be equal to that task. We have been committed 2,000 National Guard troops with the possibility of going to 4 if we need it.
Mayor Bradley, were you surprised by this outpouring of violence?
No, I was shocked by the verdict. I totally disagreed with that. There is no way they can justify what that verdict rendered. It said that we didn't see what we saw with our own eyes. Never have I seen a videotape so irrefutably support the action that we saw on that videotape. So I think that that was my first shock. And then to see the outrage expressed in violent terms is something that I think was predictable, but the level of that irresponsible hoodlum activity is something that no civilized society can accept. We reject it in Los Angeles, and we're going to do everything we can to bring it under control.
Was it a tactical decision to delay the deployment of police in some areas in hopes that it would just die down?
No, not at all. The chief, in fact, said that they did not delay, that they were surprised by the rapidity with which the fires were set in various places, and they were simply overwhelmed by that conduct. As quickly as they could, they got the troops on the streets, and then were able to bring it under control last night.
I think one thing that frightens so many people is the number of guns. You have the number of guns in Los Angeles at the moment, in the hands of private citizens.
Yes. Well, if you put guns out there thinking that somehow they will be held only by law-abiding citizens, you're wrong. The thugs, the thieves, the hoodlums are going to get them, whether they have to steal them or whether they have to buy them. And you've got a lot of them in this city. And they're in the hands of young, irresponsible, irrational young people.
Mayor Bradley, thank you very much. Stay with us on this special Street Stories. Next, we'll go live to Los Angeles for the latest on the situation there.
Dale Earnhardt, why are you getting your oil changed at a GM dealership?
The fast or free guarantee.
Fast or free?
Yep, takes 29 minutes or less, or my next one's free. Gotta go now.
And Earnhardt's back in record time.
See your Mr. Goodwrench Quick Lube Plus dealer. Come in for a Mr. Goodwrench Quick Lube Plus oil change and you could win one of 21 GM vehicles. There's millions of prizes. Just come in, scratch, and win during the Flag of Winter sweepstakes at your participating GM dealer. Now.
Drench yourself in a wave of refreshment. Crystal Light. refreshment for body and soul.
Red Lobster may have gone too far this time. A full pound of our biggest and best shrimp. Whoops, overflowing your plate. So much shrimp with all the extras, including a doggy bag at Red Lobster.
More street stories in a moment.
This is CBS.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Cooney.
And I'm Sue Mason. On the news at 10, we'll take you to Los Angeles for a late update on street violence in the wake of the Rodney King verdict.
Our summer weather continues. For a while, there's a change in the forecast. That's at 10.
Goes against about every shred of common sense I have.
3, 2, 1.
And Dana Carton goes bungee jumping. Did he make it? We'll tell you at 10.
Whatever it takes.
Montgomery Ward.
This week, Montgomery Ward challenges Sears tractors. Both have a lot in common, but Montgomery Ward has 2 more speeds. Shift on the go, a free mulch kit, and it's $200 less. Plus all tractors and mowers on sale. Get instant discounts even on sale prices on all the hottest brands like Sony, Panasonic, Frigidaire, Maytag. Take 30 to 50% off the biggest names in furniture. Then take an extra 10% off, even on sale prices.
Fact. Ford will introduce its 93 Escort early this year, so your Ford dealer is clearing out all 92 Escorts. Fact. All 92s must go before the 93s arrive. Fact. Get 2.9% financing on every 92 Escort in stock. 2.9 for 48 months. Fact. It's the best time to save on America's best-selling compact car, and your last chance to get 2.9 financing. So if you don't get to your Ford dealer before the last of the 92 Escorts are gone, it could cost you thousands, and that's a fact.
An update on the LA violence at 10.
Welcome back to a special Street Stories on the violent reaction to the not guilty verdicts in the Rodney King beating. It's approaching dusk there now, and soon a curfew will go into effect throughout the city. With the latest live from Los Angeles is our correspondent, Richard Roth. Richard, what's happening now?
Well, Ed, the outpouring of anger has been uninterrupted, and you just have to scan the skyline now to see that it's still not yet under control. Fires, 1,500 of them, according to one fire department count earlier this afternoon, but nobody knows exactly how many fires have been set, how many have been put out, how many are still burning. Each time a count is made, another one pops up. Fire officials say it's simply impossible to keep up with all of them. In many instances, the fires are started after a store has been looted. Just as the looters move away, somebody throws a gasoline bomb and the flames explode. Looting is also an enormous problem still. The National Guard has been deployed, 2,000 troops. Their orders are to secure property and to fire their weapons if necessary, to protect themselves or to protect others. The mayor has promised that the streets of Los Angeles will be made safe and secure, but so far they are not. A curfew is to take effect in just about an hour. The casualty count so far is at least 21 dead, according to the coroner's office, several hundred wounded, no precise figure there, 300 or more arrested, and property damage that now totals well over $100 million.
Richard, is it a complete curfew? Can you go out anywhere?
Well, I think you can go out in many places, but almost any place you go out, you feel a certain sense of concern and considerable risk. In the area we are standing in, which is a middle-class district, in a commercial area in a middle-class district, moments ago we saw a car pull up to a building, 4 men get out, 2 men looking into a bar, seeming to case the joint, finally running away. Shortly thereafter, just a few blocks away, another fire exploded. So it's a very chancy game in many, many parts of the city, even if the violence, the worst of the violence, is still located in South Central LA.
Thanks, Richard. Many on both sides say that the defense won its case even before the evidence was presented, when the trial was moved out of multiracial Los Angeles to a white middle-class suburb. Jerry Bowen reports on the day after the verdict in Simi Valley.
Simi Valley, California, 50 miles northwest of a smoky, smoldering Los Angeles, is reeling today.
This very conservative, mostly white bedroom community of 100,000 people, long a refuge from the urban ills barely an hour away, has suddenly become a target of rage and ridicule. The New York tabloids blasting the acquittal of the 4 white policemen by a jury in a town that many policemen call home.
Within 5 minutes of the time that the jury turned in their verdict, there were calls coming in from New York, from Long Island, New York, from Florida, from Colorado.
Washington.
The telephone calls from across the country, anonymous death threats to increasingly edgy and angry city officials.
Violently sensitive. They're swearing over the telephone. They're making threats here in our community that they're going to torch City Hall, and it's totally unfounded.
As for the suggestion of racism, the jury pointed to the presence of 2 other blacks in King's car.
This morning, a proofreader at the local paper, The Enterprise, carefully checked the story, duly reporting the stinging indictment of the town.
An acrid smell of smoke hung over the city today, prompting concern that fires had been set.
And editors struggled with a dilemma, whether to print the names of 2 jurors who had decided the notorious case. In these times, a seemingly life-and-death decision.
Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate that this is, of course, a security problem. Obviously, they've already been revealed. Their pictures were taken. It's public record. We have lots of arguments are on our side for publishing them.
And there was today's editorial, criticizing the verdict that was, quote, not politically correct.
That verdict, whether we agree with it or not, has nothing to do with the riots in Los Angeles.
And more phone calls.
We got an editorial in today saying something like that it's silly to blame Simi Valley.
Readers irritated that the image of their town has been blackened by a trial few here wanted in the first place.
The debate about Rodney King and the unfairness of the trial is a separate issue from what's going on in South Central L.A.
Simi Valley is a town where people live the quiet life on streets like Country Club Drive and Presidential Drive. Not racist country, says City Councilwoman Judy Michaels, but Reagan country, home to the Reagan Presidential Library. That's the image townspeople want the rest of the nation to have.
That's what we'd like to be remembered for. The open spaces, the hawks in the air, the presidential library, and the fine people in our community.
And I was shocked at the verdict as a citizen here, and I want people to know that I don't feel any different than the rest of the world does about this verdict, and we need to explain that because we're being maligned here in Simi Valley.
So today, town officials fretted over Simi Valley's sudden image problem, fretted and fumed over the image problem caused by the unrest 50 miles to the south.
We've had several calls this morning expressing concern that the riots and the burning and the looting down in Los Angeles is going to come to Simi Valley.
And this afternoon, the local paper headlined the awful news. The news people in Simi Valley have quickly come to dread. Grim News continues.
So Jerry, of all of the places that they could have moved the trial to, why did they pick the Valley?
In the end, the decision was made because Simi Valley was conveniently close. The trial was removed from Los Angeles because of the pre-trial publicity. But we're told that no consideration was given to the racial makeup of Ventura County, where Simi Valley is located, nor to the fact that more than 2,000 police officers call Simi Valley home.
Thanks, Jerry Bowen. Didn't America learn anything about itself the last time this happened? When we return, Dan Rather takes a look back.
When you spend this much time and effort finding fresh vegetables, shouldn't your fat-free dressing be just as fresh? New Good Seasons for fat-free dressing. You make it fresh yourself with no oil. A unique blend of herbs and spices makes it taste great. And just 10 calories. New Good Seasons for fat-free dressing. Because any way you shake it, the best fat-free is the fresh fat-free.
Come closer. Come on. With certs, I don't have to worry about anyone getting too close, which leaves me free to worry about everything else.
Get certs with Retsin, because there's nothing funny about bad breath.
Trouble with heartburn? Well, you could change your diet. Or better still, reach for Rolaids. It works fast to bring 100% relief to millions. So maybe you can't change your life, but you can get relief. Rolaids spells relief.
Hard to believe, but that was me, Dan Deerdorf, before I lost 40 pounds in 4 months with Ultra Slim Fast. Hey, I'm a big eater,
But with Ultra Slim Fast, I never felt hungry. The plan is easy. I had a delicious shake for breakfast, another for lunch, and then a sensible dinner. I'm back to my college playing weight, and I feel terrific. Best of all, I'm not shaped like one of these anymore.
Ultra Slim Fast. Give us a week. We'll take off the weight.
Detective Frank Keller thinks he's met the woman of his dreams.
I believe in animal attraction. I believe in love at first sight.
But sometimes, when love is blind,
I believe in this.
it can also be deadly.
There's some psycho woman out there killing guys. She's a suspect, Frank. She's not the shooter.
What are you looking for?
Al Pacino, Ellen Barkin, John Goodman.
This is getting out of hand.
Sea of Love, next Thursday.
What are you looking for?
Dateline, America's Streets. The shockwaves from the King verdict rippled out from Los Angeles, but while there have been some demonstrations of violence, there have also been demonstrations of peace. About 100 young people marched on Georgia's state capitol in downtown Atlanta, hurling rocks and bottles. Injuries were few. In Madison, Wisconsin, dozens of squad cars were smashed in response to the verdict. In Washington, a peaceful march by the White House, headed up by Jesse Jackson. There was calm there, and prayers for peace in Kansas City and across the land. The past 4 decades in America have often been marred by racial strife, sometimes simmering, sometimes at a rolling boil. Dan Rather has a look back at other days of superheated rage. Dan?
Thanks, Ed. Good evening. Back then, it was a time of war, what became the unpopular Vietnam War. Today, we're in a time of relative peace. The White House then was in the hands of Democrats. Today, a Republican is in residence. Times have changed in many ways since the mid-60s, but looking at the eruption in Los Angeles, it seems that in many ways times haven't changed much at all.
And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn.
The 1960s. It was a decade that saw assassination and war and rebellion and counterculture and race riots.
First one drops her hand, dead man.
Watts, the summer of 1965. Except for the black and white film, it looks very much like Los Angeles today. The rioting began when 2 white police officers stopped a black motorist for drunk driving. There was a fight, a mob gathered, and before it was over, 6 days later, 34 people were dead, $40 million worth of property destroyed, and the name Watts was synonymous with black rage.
Get him up! Get your hands up! Let's go!
2 summers later, there were riots in Newark and Detroit. It was the time of the long, hot summer, when the cry, "Burn, baby, burn," rang through the ghetto. The riots happened mostly because young African-American men in the inner city are filled with rage.
They are disposable in this country. They are expendable, and they are treated as such.
Terry Williams writes and teaches at the New School in New York City. He says people were optimistic in the 60s, but that's gone now.
What I can understand about this country is why, when people who are already beaten and humiliated, that this kind of capricious cruelty continues without the same sense of compassion that we give other folk.
After the rioting in the 1960s, then President Lyndon Johnson appointed a commission that concluded America was moving toward 2 societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. More than 2 decades later, there's not much reason to conclude otherwise. Race is tearing America apart. Terry Williams thinks he knows why the problems of the black community go largely ignored.
It's a community that is viewed as disposable and expendable, who are annihilating each other, and so there's no response. Why? Why respond when in fact you're getting rid of a population that's disposable in the first place?
Indeed, young black males consider themselves an endangered species. Today, there are more young African-American men caught up in the criminal justice system than there are in college. Homicide is the leading cause of death among black men, and the life expectancy for black males in Harlem is shorter than it is for men in Bangladesh.
Get your hands up, I said. Drop that purse and get your hands up.
From Los Angeles, 1965, to Los Angeles, 1992, so much has changed.
But yet, so much remains the same. Ed, then as now, this isn't just a street story. It's not just any story. It's the story of America, who we have been, who we will be. How are we going to get along with each other? Can we, all of us, get along with each other? A lot of the answers are in the hands of, say, a few hundred people. 100 United States senators and our representatives in Congress, setting aside the president for the moment, that 100 white people there, and perhaps more than any other people, the 500 people who lead the companies who are the Fortune 500, because then as now, Ed, a lot of what this is about is economics, opportunity, jobs, people feeling they have a sense, at least a sense, that if they work hard, do the right thing, they can make it.
So you think, Dan, that the answer is in Washington to fixing these problems?
Well, the answer is within all of us, each one of us, certainly. And Washington can't and doesn't have all the answers. I simply make the point that everybody's talked to sociologists, college professors, journalists, policemen. The president, 100 senators, and the heads of 500 Fortune 500 companies could almost immediately begin to make a big difference.
Dan, there are 230, 40 million people here. As an individual in this country, what does an individual do to change it?
Hajed, I'm not sure. You and I have been covering this general story for a very long time, and I never quite know how to answer that question. I think the answer lies in, pass it on. We have to teach that we are a people, a society, a country. We believe that all human beings are created equal, and we believe in freedom and liberty under God. If we can't teach that, can't pass it on, we're going to have a lot of Los Angeles.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Ed.
When we return to be black and American in the 1990s.
Morning. What's for breakfast in modern times?
Oh, just cereal.
Back in my century, we enjoyed grains kept whole for a more natural, hearty taste.
New great grains.
You bet it's great. Toasted wheat, oats, and barley. Kept whole, full of flavor.
Great. Dates, raisins, even pecans. This really is delicious.
Now I'm hungry. Got another bowl?
What was great back then is great grains now. A great new cereal from Post.
Hi, I'm Cecil Bond of Sears Brand Central, and our one-time only Carnival of Values event means great savings. Save on appliances, electronics, and home office equipment. All these great brands.
Like this 386 SX Packard Bell 20 megahertz computer with a 105 megabyte hard drive. Save $100. Or get a super value on a Kenmore range. Lowest price of the year, gas or electric, just $279.99. And there's much more.
So come into Sears Brand Central. You can count on great values, and you can count on me.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
To send money fast, call 1-800-CALL-CASH or come to any Western Union location.
Something in my heart just told me my son.
Western Union, fastest way to send money.
How's it feel to kill someone?
Did she?
You tell me.
Or didn't she? Not since Fatal Attraction has there been such an electrifying thriller.
Freeze!
Basic Instinct, rated R, now playing at a theater near you.
Tisk, a tisk, tisk. A tisk, tisk, tisk. Whisk, whisk. A tisk, tisk. A tisk, tisk, tisk. Whisk, whisk.
Advanced Action Whisk dissolves the adhesive bonds that lock dirt and stains onto your clothes. So Whisk cleans a whole washload of tisks.
A tisk, tisk. A tisk, tisk, tisk. Whisk, whisk, whisk.
Wake up to the first word on what's happening right here in Des Moines. Turn to TV8 Morning News at 6:30 with Liz Murdian and John McLaughlin. See what the day ahead has in store for you. Weekday mornings at 6:30 on TV8.
I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith. Keep up with the day's top stories.
Plus the latest in consumer news, health, and money matters.
Watch CBS This Morning weekdays at 7.
It's breakfast for your head.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, the one word that's worth 1,000 pictures is Iowa. Call 1-800-345-IOWA and discover the countless possibilities for your summer getaway. More than 600 colorful festivals, dozens of vintage railroad and riverboat rides, and 300 family attractions. This summer, the time is right to discover Iowa's treasures.
Some have said the King verdict is a chilling example of what it means to be a black man in America. The head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference called the verdict, quote, permission to perform genocide on black males. As Harold Dow reports, for some, the struggle for equality is far from over.
What it's like to be a black person in America? It's like being in hell, if you can visualize that. It's like being in a living hell.
For many, being black in America today is no different than it was yesterday or any other day.
It doesn't matter. Your life is not worth anything. And that's a sad commentary.
Black in America, even in 1992, hasn't changed much.
We have no rights that the white man respect.
In New York, 3,000 miles away, the verdict is big news.
Until last night, I had a whole lot of hope.
But it calls to mind the smaller realities of life.
If you're going down the street, you drive a Benz or a BMW, automatically they assume that you're a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? As though there's no hard-working black man in America.
I've had them lock the store on me.
We get in elevators, people leave.
Some people, they move their pocketbooks.
So it happens to you? Of course. Calvin Butts is a Baptist minister in Harlem.
Today, racism is endemic. It's amorphic. You just can't spot it all the time.
When we get back, we'll be talking to more of you on the telephones as our all-day coverage of the Rodney King trial aftermath continues.
At a radio station, MTV star Fab Five Freddy is getting the word out.
I mean, obviously, it's wrong to burn your own community, but that's what happens when you push people too far. I've been in L.A. a lot, and when they pull black people over, they lay them on the ground, and you see them handcuffed on their face down. I think that's foul, man, and people ain't going for that no more.
Do you think there was a message in the verdict for black people in America?
Yeah, stay in your place, leave us alone, you're not part of us. Well, I'm outraged and I'm angered, but it lets me know where I am, and it lets me know the struggle that I'm in. I'm not disappointed in all white people, because I know that all white people are not like that. But there are enough of them to make it awfully uncomfortable for black people in America.
Harold, have you ever felt that someone is trying to put you in your place? Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Sure. I've worked for CBS in Los Angeles as a reporter there for 8 years. I was stopped once by a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy, and he pulled me over, got out of the car, and his first words to me were, "Where are the guns and where are the drugs?" I was driving a pretty nice car. I was kind of stunned by it, but he then proceeded to search my car from headlight to tail, and I just said, well, it was one of those things that happened. A year later, it happened to me again. The same cop said the same thing. Where are the guns? Where are the drugs?
Were you doing anything that was suspicious? Were you speeding, driving erratically?
Not at all. And, you know, you just write it off. We experience these things. And I'm by no means saying that every police officer has this problem, but there are some out there that do, and I think that's quite clear.
Have you ever felt afraid when you were approached by a policeman?
Sure, you do. You don't know what's going to happen. One thing I learned from my brother, who's a lawyer, is when they come up, you have to just put your hands on the steering wheel and ask permission to get your wallet. Every move you make, you let them know, particularly if it's at night.
Harold, thank you very much. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
How many? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lisa. Happy birthday to you.
All across America, people are throwing in the towel. The scrub brush, the rubber gloves, and refusing to wash all their dishes before they wash their dishes. They're turning off their faucets and turning on the Maytag Jet Clean dishwasher that scrubs with 47 powerful jets, filters, then disposes. It's made to get dishes clean, no strings attached. Or repair. Airman. The Jet Clean dishwasher from Maytag, the dependability people.
At universities like this, clinical studies prove there's a way to lose weight simply and effectively without caffeine or caffeine nervousness. It's Dexatrim. Dexatrim helps you control your appetite so you can lose weight without feeling hungry. And no other weight loss product has more published medical studies to show that it works. In fact, studies prove that 4 out of 5 people lost weight with Dexatrim. Now that's powerful proof.
Dexatrim, medically proven to help you lose weight.
We go back now live to Los Angeles and Richard Roth.
Ed, fires still coming up almost as fast as we can spot them. There's a new one. The latest casualty count, 21 dead according to the coroner's office, several hundred wounded, a curfew to take effect shortly, and a promise from the mayor that the streets of Los Angeles will be made safe and secure tonight. Ed?
That's Street Stories for tonight. Before we leave, we have some good news brought about by our report on the case of Ricky Thomas.
All right, Rick.
Right behind
Just yesterday, he walked free from a Texas jail after serving 16 months for a crime he didn't commit.
Freedom is priceless. You know, you can't put a value on freedom, and you know, I wouldn't give mine up for nothing in the world now since I done been through this ordeal.
Thomas was given a life sentence for mugging 2 elderly women in Texas, but he always said he was innocent, that the day of the robbery he was 1,000 miles away in California. But a state trooper testified that this man, photographed with the alleged getaway car, was Ricky Thomas. But some people who saw our report told police this man is actually named Ricky Knox. Authorities found Knox in Utah and brought him back to Texas. He's now charged with the same mugging.
Can Texas ever make this up to you?
No, they can't make up this lost time to me, you know. This time is lost and it's behind me, and that's where I'm going to leave it behind me.
As for the situation in Los Angeles, CBS News will continue to monitor developments. For the latest, stay tuned to your local CBS station. We'll be back with more Street Stories in 3 weeks. Until then, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Ed Bradley. We'll see you Sundays on 60 Minutes. Good night.
A production of CBS News. For a transcript of Street Stories, send $5 to Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039. And for a VHS cassette of tonight's broadcast, call 1-800-348-4480.
A boy falls 40 feet off a dangerous cliff and a small town rallies to save him.
One wrong jolt and he could have been paralyzed the rest of his life.
Rescue 911 Friday. Sunday, a novelist is haunted.
Did you see her? Did you see her? Who?
By the death of his wife. Was it suicide?
Someone was trying to give us the most awful fright.
On Murder, She Wrote. Then, a woman desperate to save her marriage.
I'm pregnant.
Kidnaps another woman's child for her own.
She just took her.
Veronica Hamill, Nancy McKeon, Baby Snatcher, Sunday.
This is CBS. At Big Sur Waterbeds, this waterbed sells for just $225.99. How do we sell it for so little? Simple. We own the factory. That's how we keep quality high and prices low. $225.99 also buys the Oakhurst, the New York, the Balboa, this Daybed, the Chantel, the Sedona, and more. great comfort and factory direct savings from Big Sur Waterbeds, America's largest. 3715 Merle Hay Road at Douglas in Des Moines.
This is the heartland. No shortcuts. No easy way out. And no end to what you can do.